Hey, that's you still actively play.
Yeah, no, I play as much as I used to do. And again, when we moved up here, and then it took a while. I was like, it was like trying to find someone to do that with. It just didn't really pan out.
Yeah.
Like I was playing with this piano player for a while. And
Seems like there would be lots of cheap places that you play.
yeah, it helped. I mean, they all like they're like it's just. It was kind of like very open. I thought, oh, I'm gonna sit down and I piano. I'm gonna get really good at this. And I'm more like told
That's a, there'll be that point in time when you'll be inspired to just do it.
I mean, they kind of
There are certain times when like fight for it, right? We can tell ourselves for a while. Yeah. You're just like, I'm gonna do it. No.
This is when I was a kid. Yeah, so it was like, and in high school, I started with the
Okay. So my brother is a math with that. And my son, who's really good at math, learns to play themselves. As I say, if you're really good at math, you can teach yourself. They're self-taught.
They said it's different as another language, and it really
What's that? We're good for you guys. No, but you've learned it, and it's beautiful. I mean, what a great thing to have. To all have. Even if you're just playing around with friends, like it's a nice.
That's what I like. I said like yeah, because like anywhere you go, you have to go and fun with and there's again if you just like do it you're from big party or
Exactly. And that's so true. Yeah. I like having like kids to run around, even though I don't really play that much of them. I have friends that do.
yeah, I have more pain on the ball than yeah.
I'm not a people may visit. It's the one that has 6 strings. 6. And I've never known anybody that plays a mandolin, but I have a good friend that plays a guitar, and it's like, oh, you have a mandolin? I love mandolins. So he just picked it up, and it was just like somebody to that. Oh, how do you do that?
I remember like years ago, I thought, oh, I cello because it's but then it was like this tune and he was like so hard. Yeah, yeah. It's not. Yeah. Right.
Try it down. Yeah, I had to go to bed. Thank you. I think you could be on Zoom. Okay, everyone, is that okay? Anything special? Yeah. Okay. We're gonna be up there. We should be there. Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
yeah, you can get the link on the city's website to it's a nice space. Yeah. It's a little chilly in the winter, but
do they do plays here and stuff?
they do shows. There's a lot of like weddings and I've been to a show. Yeah, they sometimes do shows. Oh, do they do plays? Really? I don't know.
Used to.
Used to.
Born in a trunk. Remember that? Okay, that was weird.
Was that Trinidad specific?
Wait, what did you say?
Oh, born in a trunk.
Born in a trunk.
Yeah, they had a little. So you remember Born in a Trunk?
Absolutely.
See, you'd be old to know that.
Oh, that's bad news. I should say that. Trump, what's that Trump?
Wait, what? Okay, so what's the premise of the play?
I can't remember exactly what I did.
And it has to do with Trinidad?
Well, they had little plays, little skits and things like that. They would.
Oh, it was the playhouse was called that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually was a play. I'm like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, might have been at one point, yeah.
okay.
I didn't go to too many of them.
Uh-huh.
It was, yeah, it was fun.
Who was it that did that? It was Terry's wife, right?
Yeah, Terry Farmer was quiet and Penny Fletcher.
That's what you have to say.
I think,
Reading.
Okay, I'm gonna go to this side since the camera's on that.
Perfect.
Are you Sarah?
I am.
You're on your neighbor down the road there.
Okay.
Yeah, Gloria.
Oh, you're so.
My phone, yeah. How you doing?
Are you on the?
I'm on the city council, but I come in.
Yeah, so my neighbor Chris, right next to me, is normally on this committee, right? We have
Where they get on
Okay, so well, they're in there, you're gonna keep us entertained during the layover.
Yeah.
I was trying to. What did anybody think? But I wasn't sure. The sewer is my power. That's not.
Yeah, I just,
And here's the full. So they're very funny.
like down.
Well,
that's what I figured, yeah.
Why, in charge of updating the neighborhood.
Oh.
So I talked to him now, I was just waiting for.
The June meeting, maybe that's.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's pretty good. I think it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Kristen,
What's
going on, Roland?
next to you?
Join it, unusual for July. Oh, I said,
Yeah.
It's 2 nights.
2 nights, oh yeah, I'm so used to the.
Are you gonna do
French and then.
We're gonna leave them sign.
I was saying.
Yeah, is it big yet?
I mean, you said that it's a little spotty, I was supposed to be out there today, but my friend
Yeah, that's.
said on me last minute, and I couldn't.
What's it? It's not dirty.
Yeah. Last week.
These are the Larry clubs in the. And they're going.
No, it's only open through July 1st, so it'll open again in August, if there's any fish left, but I got,
Thomas, but he's.
one of my friends, he's got like fish.
Yeah, and Henry and Taylor.
Really?
No, I don't think there's any quota on that.
Do you ever go out to Trinidad or you just to Eureka?
Oh, no, I'm more than.
Yeah, you're good up here.
Yeah, and this last week has been really good, and I haven't been out in the last week.
That's all
Some bigger fish, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock.
And we'll call the Wednesday, July 15th. Planning Commission meeting in order, and we'll start with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Richard Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Commissioner Roland Johnson.
Here.
And Aaron and Chris are not here. Moving on to approval of minutes, we have 2 sets of minutes, one from April and one from May. Does anyone have any changes to one or both of those sets?
I've got some comments on a few of them.
All right, let's start with April.
Yeah, I'd be confused about item number 2, approval of minutes, as to who was. I can't remember exactly. I was the one that had to leave at 8, not RF. But I didn't understand the thing about requested that the cap being discussed in the fourth paragraph. Because I don't know what the cap was, if that was Richard or me. I'm just wondering if that's,
So
Wait,
I believe. Exactly.
you had to leave
I
the
left
previous meeting at 8.
Yeah, you left the previous
Like,
month. I left in January.
thank
That
you.
that was the.
Okay, all right, I didn't,
Rainfall, and I had to be home to take care of it.
Okay.
this is why it's tougher. You
When you're.
So, yeah, I would suggest that change as well.
So wait, RF is right. Or what did RS and
Okay, so, RF Johnson had to leave at 8 p.m. With respect to the cat being discussed, I do not know what that you were referring to without going back and doing more
Yeah,
due diligence in it.
yeah, so I guess we can assume that you requested that the cap being discussed in the fourth paragraph be displayed, because we don't know what the fourth paragraph was. Yes,
I believe that was the case.
okay,
So we're good there.
we're good.
Yes. In April.
No,
I just had one question, John. April, on page 2 of the minutes. The 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down, the last sentence says Hackett suggests that the next step would be to get a prioritized list to the city council. I was just curious if that.
so
We need to take that as an action to ask Aaron to follow up with that. Or, I think that was.
I mean, I would
discussion.
I mean, we kind of prioritize things for the staff report. I don't know that you guys really refined much in there. Did you just agree with the staff report? But yeah, we can follow up with Aaron to see if he transmitted that to us.
I do want to make a comment about the minutes in general. I might as well start with this one. And that is, we covered in here a lot of items where we referred to a particular page, and then there were questions. And if I was a member of the public and I was looking at these minutes to try to figure out what was going on, I would have a hard time knowing where some of these things connect on a page. And instead of just having each item right after another, I think we should break out things that aren't related in separate paragraph.
We could, I think the minutes are already pretty long and detailed. Most communities do just action minutes at this point. And someone could look at the next version and see the track changes. We could add more detail, but I think there
I'm
are.
not talking adding more detail. I'm just talking about when you go from a comment on one part of the page, and then you go to a completely unrelated comment on the second part of the page, that maybe just had a separate paragraph.
Okay.
Do you have an example of that?
Oh, yeah.
It almost looks like that's what's happened, at least in April.
Yeah, I do try and separate topics to some degree, but sometimes I also try and combine.
One that really caught me is the packet, page 7. Where you talk about page 17, two completely unrelated things. We talk about page 20, again, two other things that are separate.
So armory
And then-
versus facilities. Although that might have been an armory discussion as well, actually. That might have been part of the armory discussion.
I think it was.
The
I think it
armory,
was, yeah, because it's stormwater infrastructure, so I think it was still about armoring. I think that whole paragraph
Well, I think I remember there was a conversation about what critical facilities were. But it's just examples. I think if when you're reviewing the transcript or however these things are done, if they would just separate like that, it would be easier.
I think in this instance, they're stuck together because they are related, even though, or at least on page 17.
I think we talked about the definition of critical facilities maybe
Right.
somewhere else.
I'm not suggesting that we change these minutes. I'm just talking about
Yeah,
future. I mean, the information is there.
We had a brief discussion, I think, 2 months ago, whether or not we could kind of maximize efficiency, but AI, we were able to do anything there.
Generating minutes.
Yeah. We asked it to do action items, which might help us track some of the stuff that we say we're going to do. I mean, I don't know what the policy of the city is with respect to using AI, and we don't have to get into that.
have you tried that at all?
Okay.
Arcata just is looking at a AI policy.
Yeah, it may take a policy before we do anything.
Yeah, it's, it'll do those AI notes and minutes from meetings, and I mean, it's not bad, but you do have to go through it.
Well, of course, but
yeah.
just thinking about trying to get some stuff out of your job, Joe.
Okay, anything else from April? We got a
Move to approve.
move. I'll second. All in favor?
I
Aye. Okay, let's go to May. Minutes, please.
got a couple. On the first page under staff report. And that second line sentence starts with he explained. That's some kind of a typo. I don't know.
Sorry, where's the sheet?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that was page 10 of the previous one.
Oh, you're right.
No, it's page 10. Yeah, that's the first.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, under agenda item staff report.
Okay.
The second line. And what caught my attention more than that was, it says here that explained that she met with the Coastal Commission staff and their resolved comments have been deleted for clarity. And I'm not understanding resolved.
That's on
That is a resolved comment.
in the document, you can hit resolve for, so you can still see the comments, but they're grayed out so that you know that they've been addressed.
Oh, okay.
Resolved.
All right.
But I can clarify that because that isn't clear.
Well, if it's common knowledge, I don't know.
Maybe. I can at least say something about in the document, something.
I guess I'm still with me. On the next page, under page 22, there was a goal suggested combining SAF 4.1 and 4.2. And was there a consensus? Was there an agreement about that or?
You're losing me on your reference. What page are you on?
Okay, now I'm on page 11.
11. Okay, yeah.
Page 11 referring to page 22. Where it starts off with the urban core.
Okay.
Then we ended up with, there was a suggestion made. And I don't know if there was any consensus or just made a suggestion and whether, it's,
I don't remember either.
I'm just thinking things like this probably in minutes that there should be a resolution to questions like that.
Yeah. Let's see.
It's a similar one,
So
down there on Graceland.
I think there was, I mean, there weren't any objections to it. It's siting and design for fire hazard avoidance and then fire hazard avoidance conditions for new development. And they are pretty similar. And I think I agree that they could be combined and there weren't any objections. But you're right, we should have the resolution.
Yeah, I think anytime we have something like somebody asked, some. Like I say, the next one down, page 23, look at the second paragraph there, the same thing. Again, a request was made.
I think that one I got denied on my request based on the way that's written.
Well, you did suggest
No further.
you suggested combining that with those two as well, but this one's really just for subdivision and creating new lots. But you did suggest moving it to after those.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe a way in which we can help public with that is if we make a statement somewhere in the minutes, something like, please refer to the latest version of the document for the changes that have been implemented or something. Because otherwise, you're right. Someone who is not familiar with this might get a little lost if they just read the minutes as they are.
Yeah.
But if you have the document in front of you, you
Yeah.
can see what the change has been made.
And we could also make a blanket statement that suggestions with no further discussion. Or something.
They just have a standard sentence and just
Yeah.
skip on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Right. Disclosure clause.
yeah.
So the next page 12, very top, we're talking about Parker explains sea level rise means that will end. So it does the boundary, I think, of state land. That sentence is incomplete.
Sorry, you said you're on page 12 now?
On page 12, at the top, second line,
Oh, yeah, perfect.
and again, under this, on this same page where it refers to page 34 and 35, at the end of that discussion, because there was a lot of suggestions made there, and if there was an agreement that more language is noted, from various agencies, not just fire, there's suggestions there that we actually had a discussion, and I think there was a resolution. I don't remember what it
That
was.
was agreed
But
to.
yeah, I think, I was only to make it general.
Go to page 13. Goes first to page 39. That sentence, after changing to current owner, and said, and should just be obtained access. So I don't know what that sentence means. I mean, I think I know what it should say. Is it?
The original wording, as I recall, said for keys
Yeah.
to obtain keys. And the issue there is that it may not be
Yeah.
a key padlock, it might be a padlock with a combo. So that was what I suggested as a change to just obtain access.
Okay, so you suggested that the reference to Green Diamond too specific, and that's totally agree, and should be changed to current owner. And should just be obtain access.
Yeah.
So fix that.
Clumsy. Yeah.
I can describe it.
Same page, it's like, we're talking about page 43. There was a continued discussion of emergency access and evacuation routes. And I think you need to say through someplace. Because evacuation routes in relation to that specific policy number. And then Richard recommend developing an MOU with the current property owner. Again, there was not a conclusion to that because that was a pretty clear recommendation. And that would suggest an action item.
But I think we accepted that.
I think we did.
Yeah, so I know there, so did we agree? And I said the same thing, or was there to be a follow-up? Last but not least, same page 13 under staff report, Parker said the testimony for the city's ongoing litigation and trial wrapped up. You need to say what? Litigation and trial wrapped up. That's if we would know.
Like which litigation?
Yeah. Yeah, the litigation involving X, you know.
Maybe you shouldn't say though.
I think we all know what the litigation we're talking about.
Yeah, the ongoing litigation.
Yeah, but there could be numerous ongoing litigations.
So you're suggesting like City of Trinidad versus something?
Yeah. Yeah, or litigation with, you know, we all know, we're talking about the Shurite, you know, society.
No, I just, as a staff member, I just said what was happening.
Yeah.
And the actual trial is not the name of the trial.
That was it, say.
Yeah.
Trinidad versus. Yeah.
So there,
Richard?
No, I was fine with, I'll concur with those changes, yeah.
Do you want to see these again with the changes before
No.
we approve them?
No, I fill in the blanks.
Do you want to make a motion?
I will make a motion that these minutes be approved as adjusted.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Moving on to approval of tonight's agenda. Agenda has 2 items on it. Does anyone changes to the order of those items? Not. Do you have a motion for it?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item from the floor. Oh, excuse me, I also approve. Anything that's not on tonight's agenda that anyone wants to bring up to the commission?
Good evening. My name is John Wasswitz at 895 Underwood. The old Penske place down at the end of Underwood there, familiar with that. And I just wanted to stop by and say, introduce myself because I was appointed to the city council about a year ago. And I've been meaning to get over here and meet you gentlemen. And I'm sorry it's taken so long to do that. So this is an introduction. And I'm really enjoying the position there at City Council. I am amazed at the amount of expertise that we got in this small village, especially within the planning commission. Thank you guys for all the detailed work that you do on that, and Trevor. So anyhow, I just wanted to introduce myself and hope to see you guys around.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah,
welcome.
Thanks for being on the council.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anything else, items from the floor? All right, then moving on, or do we need a public comment on that? No. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 1. Trevor, please.
Yeah, so this is I think it's a pretty simple project, but it would be exempt in most places, even under the Coastal Act, it would be exempt from CDPs, but because of Trinidad's view protection policies, anything that alters the external profile of the structure could impact views, and so requires design reviews. So in this case, it's a 2nd-story deck. There is some potential to block views. A design review is required, and our process for that is design. So that is the process. Project came through a building referral. I did not send out a bunch of referrals for this project because it's so small. I did consult with health department staff because there was a little bit of confusion over the septic system and what it consisted of. To work that out. Projects on Underwood, obviously, the deck will be on the front of the house, so facing Underwood on the west side of the building, or the front side of the building, but on the west side of that. And right now they're rebuilding the other 2nd floor deck on the other side. So, and there's some other improvements like changing windows to sliding glass doors, changing the stairs and railings to the front entry, adding a planter wall and patio under the deck. Those items don't by themselves require design review, but we're just included a description as the project as a whole, so you understand what's going on. But it's really just the deck that requires the design review. I did note Commissioner Slay owns property next door and to the east, so it's actually the most likely to be impacted by the project. Technically, the public generally rule would apply because there's enough people affected within 500 feet residential properties. But because of his position, it is a different kind of impact, I would say. But he didn't have any issues with the project and had a friend in town, and since he had to recuse himself anyway, that's why he's not at the meeting tonight. So the project meets all the zoning ordinance requirements. It's not changing the square footage or height of the house, anything like that. It doesn't encroach on the septic system. There was one question about setback. So and exactly where the front yard setback is, where the property line is. There's a lot of encroachments on Underwood, so it's difficult to tell exactly where the front of the street. It looks like based on the 1998 plans and just my measuring on Google Earth, it might be a few inches over. I just made it a condition of approval that it has to meet the front yard setback, either be 3 inches shorter or provide a method for the building inspector to verify that. It's just a matter of a few inches. It's not a big deal. It doesn't change parking, anything like that. It's not in a slope stability area, questionable stability, so no geologic report. The materials and colors are provided in the plans. The septic system, as shown on the plans, has leach lines, but it's actually a system with 2 pits. The confusion was because 2 pits is uncommon and it has a distribution box. And so normally if there's a D box, it's assumed there's leach lines. We actually have the original permit too. The property did recently sell, and so we review properties, septic systems at the time of sale. And we have required pits to be upgraded to leach lines. In this case, it's not in a sensitive area. There's 2 pits, so it's a fairly robust system. And using the reserve area, then there wouldn't be any additional reserve area really after that. So And talking with health department, we felt it was best to leave the pits as is, so the system does have a valid operating time. As I noted, the project requires design review. The design review and view protection findings are written in a manner to allow approval. As usual, if additional information is submitted or if you feel differently, then the findings should be reworded accordingly. Staff recommendation is for approval. There is a sample motion there for approving the project. You can, if you have concerns about the project, you can add conditions, ask for additional information. And then conditions of approval are pretty standard. Number 5 is the one about the front yard set. So think of that. Covers it. Pretty detailed plans in here. And the applicant, the owner is here as well as the agent, so online. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or like.
Thank you, Trevor. Any questions for Trevor?
Well, I've got a question. You bring up this front yard setback, and it doesn't sound like it's really clear where the street right of way is. And you're talking about a couple of inches being resolved.
Yeah.
I mean, really, can't we just let them build it the way it's designed?
To the satisfaction of the building inspector, sure.
Well,
I mean-
because we don't know what the building inspector is going to require. You're going to have to bring in a surveyor.
Well, it's either that or you bring in a surveyor, yeah.
Right.
We shortened it by 3 inches. I mean, I can't recommend approval of a project that doesn't meet setbacks. And based on my measurements and looking at the original site, well, not original, 1998 site plan, it looks to me like it's 3 inches over. And so that's why I can't recommend approval. If it look, you know, based on the information I have, I would say it's 3 inches over. And so this is my condition, but I worded it as flexible as possible to, you know, find there are a couple of center line markers in Underwood they could use. And I believe there's a parcel 1 down and across that's been surveyed, so there should be corner markers. I mean, I don't care.
Right.
Well, I think
But it's an issue. I mean, it is an issue, and I will say that these encroachments on Underwood are significant, and not just on Underwood, but in other parts of town, and they impact parking. I think it is an issue, and so I think it is something we do have to be careful of.
my question, which is an issue, is what would happen if the building inspector determines that this is greater than 8 feet 3 inches in depth? Does that mean that it has to come back to us?
Oh, well, no, I don't think so. I think it could be slightly wider or slightly narrower to meet the setback.
Well, that's what's confusing. I mean, it could be slightly narrower or slightly larger.
Well, so it's proposed to be 8 feet 6 inches in depth.
Yeah, right.
And I'm, you know, based on my measurements, that looks like 3 inches into the front yard setback. So I said it's either 8 feet 3 inches deep, or or it can be the 8.6 if the building inspector verifies it meets the setback.
But is he going to use any criteria that is different than yours?
Well, he can out in the field find the markers and measure from the marker.
So you would do some sort of mini survey, or could do some
Is that
really his purview?
And said they did that themselves and they're pretty confident about the setback. And if they can show that to the building inspector, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, that's I guess I don't think that it's the purview of the building inspector to go find the property corners.
No, but for the
But if the
applicant to
applicant wants to
verify
verify
it
it,
with
show
the
it,
building
yeah.
inspector, yes, and I
That's
think. Yeah, so alternatively, the applicant provides a method for the building official to verify. So it's not the building official going out there, but it would be.
So, so maybe we can ask the applicant about how they established this.
Pause on the fence. Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
So I established the center line of Underwood Road to the best of my abilities, and then used a 20-foot wide road, and then established a 20-foot setback from that. I wasn't aware that there was a 50-foot corridor. So to the best of my abilities, I'm showing 28 feet from what I understand to be the property line, which is nowhere, which is, 8 feet away from where the setback line would be. So we technically could have asked for a 16-foot deck in my mind, but I'm not saying I'm right. I didn't go through all the bylaws. I didn't research it. I went based on what our information that we were given at the time that the sale happened. I used all those maps. But I think that we are well within the setback line. But if we need to make our deck 3 inches narrower, we're more than happy to do that. It doesn't hit a corner post anymore, which makes it kind of annoying. So we have to rip apart the exterior wall and somehow get a new post, not in the corner, but 3 inches away from the corner. So that's going to be a pretty large expense. And we also offered to hire a surveyor, but, at some point the project becomes, the survey could be the same cost as the entire project. And if the 3 inches of real concern, then we'll just rip apart the corner of the house and make the deck 3 inches narrower.
Thank you. This is what I don't like about this process. When we have information that's inconsistent because the city doesn't have defined boundaries. They haven't mapped out their right of ways and all that stuff. You're measuring off center lines in a road that's, somebody can put a stripe pretty much anywhere as long as it's kind of in the middle of the pavement. I know these things are
There's
expensive.
plenty of methods to get pretty close. I mean, I don't think it makes sense to require a surveyor for every, small project. The Underwood right of way has been surveyed and monumented. It's a 50-foot right of way. I think that's part of what the confusion is. And so there are markers in the road.
Okay, so if the right of way was surveyed, are people's property lines starting at the right of way and going into their property? Or do we have property lines that are going across the right of way?
No, it's a public right of way, so the property line ends at the edge of the right of way. And I think another good marker, I mean, I would also, in this case, I think you could assume that the rear fence is a pretty good marker since it is around school grounds, and you could measure forward from the rear fence as well.
That's a big assumption. I'm just wondering if the school district is any more concerned about the accuracy of their fence than the city is about the edge of their pavement. I mean, I don't be so critical. It just seems like these kinds of things could, talk about 3 inches and tearing out the corner of a house to get structural support. It's like, that's kind of.
Yeah, I'm not sure why tearing something out would be required. The applicant can explain.
Well, yeah, but sometimes structures, it goes through all the calcs and all of that kind of thing.
It seems to me that, I mean, all these things we just discussed are, this is the purview. If you really want to know where the property line is, you have to hire a surveyor, period. Otherwise, to me, it's whatever the building inspector, person who's on the ground, while the building official from the city who's on the ground looking at project while it's happening, if he has some doubt as to whether or not the proposed deck is meeting the setbacks, then it should be up to him to say, hold on, you need to hire a surveyor. But if he thinks that it's, and if the applicant can demonstrate to him how it meets the setbacks and he's satisfied with that, then that's satisfactory. But I don't know that it's our place to say whether or not the applicant can provide sufficient evidence of the setback sitting here.
Well, here's what I can offer. So the deck plan itself consists of drilling a couple of caissons, which will need to be inspected, both by me as the engineer of record and by the building inspector from the city of Trinidad. Now, that structural tube that sits inside that caisson doesn't have to be 100% centered in that caisson. It's an 18-inch pier with a 3-inch tube. So what I would endeavor to do during the course of construction is we drill that pier hole where we know it's going to be. I make an effort to find the monuments, pull string lines, pull the dimensions, have my process available to the city inspector when he comes out, meet with him on site with our contractor, and show him how we located this tube, because that tube has to be cast into the pier. The concrete, rebar, everything gets cast in together. So I would say we make that the process. And the design of the deck is super simple because the outside face of tube is essentially a 1/2 inch off of the outside face of the deck. It's a 4-inch rim piece of steel with a 3-inch column. So they're a 1/2 inch away from each other. So we'll be able to locate that outside face of the deck or the actual true width of the deck by just placing that column. And if we have to shimmy it in 1.5 inches or whatever needs to happen, we can do that. And I won't ask the city of Trinidad building inspector to go on an Easter egg hunt to try to find these monuments. I'll go out and try to find them. And if I can't, I'll ask for help before we call for our first inspection. And we don't really want to build outside of our right of way or outside of, we want this deck to be within its limits, and we truly think that it is. And so there's a little bit of effort that has to happen during construction on our part.
We think we could change the wording of that condition, basically mirror what you just said.
I think I think it covers it because it's the applicant shall limit the deck to 8 feet, 3 inches in depth, or alternatively by providing a method for the building official to verify the front yard measurements. So I think that's essentially what it's described.
And my original question was not related to the actual measurements. The question I had was, if by these unfortunate set of circumstances that it is beyond that, does it have to come back to us? Or is there some sort of waiver process? Or, as you point out, maybe we could change the wording a little bit to give us a little bit latitude here. That's all I was trying.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the measurements.
We have had projects where if they end up the final design a little bit smaller, I don't bring it back.
Right.
If it's bigger, that's different, but a little bit smaller is.
So with that comment in mind, we approve, roll the dice, and hope it doesn't have to come back.
Well, I mean, unless they decide to make it 9 feet instead of 8.
Well, that's, okay.
Well, we have no interest in exceeding our boundaries.
Well, we would be approving the design that's there. I mean, they
Yeah,
can't
right,
change
yeah,
the
right.
They can't
design.
change the
They can
design.
be bigger.
They can't, yeah, that's.
Yeah, then it's like,
If they have to shorten it by a few inches,
any part of it that's bigger.
I think we should. I mean, nix the first half of that sentence
okay.
and just say that they need to provide method or demonstrate to the building official that front yard setbacks are legit. And if that means that when Todd goes and does this exercise, he's like, oh shit, excuse me. Oh no, it's we need to shorten the deck 3 inches to demonstrate to the building inspector that then he will just then have to do. I guess.
Fine.
I think that's a good.
So what are we striking that to make sure I understand this?
So applicant shall, and then,
Applicant, it should read. Applicant shall provide a method for the building official to verify their front yard measurements.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I have to make an editorial comment real quick. I think it pertains to this, but something that maybe we even want to put in on the future agendas. I get a little nervous about witness polls. In this case, there was some discussion in the packet, and I'm not disparaging this project, but I think we need to have a policy that clearly defines when witness polls are required or not, and try to give a little bit more direction to property owners and contractors and designers of when and how they need to be utilized. And it can't be something that comes to us for the first time. They have to be in place early enough so that people have an opportunity to comment. And because I've seen in the past what has happened is that witness polls go up 2 days before we have the hearing, and nobody has an opportunity to do anything. So like I said, it's nothing to do with this project. I just think that it would be useful in the future to at least have some direction for people on when and where we need to have witness polls.
I think we have discussed that. I think.
Yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah, so I think we have some draft language.
Oh,
And we do have on our future agenda items, implementation of new design guidelines, so that could be part of that.
Okay.
So this would just be if there are view shed issue, right? Not-
Yeah, and I forget exactly what we said, but I'm pretty sure we actually included some guidelines for when the story poles are required. And the timing, we talked about timing, I'm pretty sure too, when they have to be up, so. Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Because, because the planning commission's been consistent about wanting.
Yeah, I recall, I thought we had said on the new design guidelines that we had wanted them on every project, but I thought that was a little bit too excessive.
It is
So
excessive.
I think I brought this up like a year. Come with a better policy. It's not,
I will,
but yeah, good point. Okay, anything else from the commission? You can open it up to a comment. Room. Sarah, if you have anything you'd like to add, or anyone online.
No, no comment. I think the project looks great.
Recognizing that for me.
Okay, with that in mind, do we have a motion? Someone want to endeavor a motion?
Based on application materials, information and findings as amended and included in this staff report, and based on public testimony, I find that the project is consistent with the city's LCP and other applicable regulations, and I move to adapt the information and required design review and view protected findings as amended in the staff report and approve the project as described in the staff report and as conditioned herein.
Second that. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Great. All right, moving on to agenda item number 2. Let's go into invitation. Dave, Trevor, please.
So this is part of our ongoing LCP update. So I have, we've been reviewing an ADU ordinance, and some of the difficulties with satisfying the state housing and state coastal requirements. The last time you reviewed the ordinance was in January, I believe, and there are still a few outstanding questions that as would be helpful to have answered as I try and finalize the ordinance. I have a similar list of questions for Coastal Commission staff, primarily about permitting pathways. I'm still not 100% clear on how that is all gonna work because there's several different types of permits, pathways. So there's this set of questions related to the ADU ordinance, but the ADU ordinance is not in here. Just the questions, and then the ordinance that is in here is a new chapter for coastal development permit. So this is typical for LCPs. Recall that Trinidad was the first in the state to be certified, so it's deficient in a number of areas. One of those areas is it doesn't have a process for just issuing CDP. So a lot of LCPs, their issuing of other types of permits is not even part of their LCP, and it's just a CDP. Because Trinidad's entirely in the coastal zone, I don't know if it makes sense to separate it that much, but we do run across situations where a project, particularly things like grading, landscaping types of things that don't require, or things that are too close to a bluff, that don't require design review or use permit, but we don't have a standalone CDP project. And that's gonna be important for implementing the ADU ordinance. So the Coastal Commission staff determined that we need this ADU the CDP chapter in order to implement the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit ordinance. So kind of going together, and it's also part of these larger LCP updates that we're looking at, and trying to also come up with focused updates. So instead of updating the entire thing like we've been trying to do focused updates. So adding a CDP chapter and amending sections that refer to CDPs is sort of a standalone amendment that we can work on, the same as an ADU ordinance. So it's a long, fairly complicated chapter. I've included a variety of descriptions. There's CDP exemptions, CDP exclusions. So there's some descriptions on the differences between those. Administrative CDPs, waivers. So there's some terminology in there that I've defined for you. And there's a list of some questions. A lot of this chapter is going to be just dictated by Coastal Act regulations. But there are some places where the Planning Commission has some flexibility. So some of those are highlighted and commented in the ordinance. At this point, I wasn't expecting a detailed review of the ordinance, and it hasn't been submitted to Coastal Commission staff yet, but I kind of wanted to get some big picture comments and questions and then submit it to coastal commission staff. So that's where we're at with those. I would like to try and get through the AU. I know there's only 3 of you, so maybe you're not comfortable answering all these AU questions, but I would like to go through those. There's have to do with whether you want to require a use permit. So essentially with second units, the states sets a sort of a box of types of second units that the city has to. And the city doesn't have to allow any second units outside that box. But the ordinance is written so that you can have, like, say, bigger ADUs. But what type of permit is needed? Is it a use permit that looks at neighborhood compatibility, or is it just design and your standard full coastal development permit? Note that coastal development permits will have their own set of findings now, once we have this chapter. So that's one question. Size limits, as I mentioned, that, and but I think you have some flexibility on.
Sorry, you were muttering?
And I don't even think they interpret anyway. I have a lot of complaints about the state, but we won't get into that. So size limits, I think there's 2 different size limits you could go with. One's based on, a max floor area or 50% of the residents, and the other one is max floor area for one bedroom or less, or more than 1 bedroom. In our ordinance, we currently require all ground floor ADUs to be adaptable to ADA standards, so not ADA compliant, but with doorways and widths and things so that they could be made ADA compliant. Do you want to require that? I think HCD will allow that. That's current. And then STRs, do you want to allow ADUs or the primary unit to be STRs? And we've had this quite a bit. You guys didn't actually vote. The city council, you asked the city council for their opinion. They voted. JDUs cannot be STRs. And the state mandated ADUs cannot be STRs. But the ordinance ADUs can be STRs. And the primary unit can be STRs. So you have that flexibility on what is allowed to be an STR. Last time we talked about it, you asked for information on what the previous vote was. Again, you guys didn't vote, planning commission didn't vote, city council did their votes in here. But my question to me.
Thank you, Trevor. Any questions about Trevor's staff report?
My question is, we spent a fair amount of time chewing on this ADU issue earlier. And now you followed up with specifics. Do you feel like we've done enough early on to put this in a situation where 3 of us might make some specific recommendations outside of the 5 that we would usually have? Because if not, I don't think we should, the 3 of us should decide it. I mean, if it was 4, it's like, okay, but 60% of the commission is a little weak unless we feel like this is sort of a redo.
You have discussed these before, but I didn't feel that there was a clear consensus.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one, if all 3 of you are in agreement about something here, maybe then you can answer it. And if you're not, then we wait for more commissioners. Also, do keep in mind the ordinance will come back to you as well in the future. So.
it's not an excessive amount of material here.
Go ahead. I'll just start off with a simple question. So I didn't understand on page 38, at the top of the page where the city council vote. I understand the first two bullets, primary residence and ADUs cannot be STRs. And then the third bullet says same for home share and resident STRs. Same what?
Same as those two votes. So,
Okay, so for home share and resident STRs, primary resident can be an STR.
yes.
And ADUs cannot be STRs, but I understand. It's confusing to me because,
I don't even know what a home share is.
well,
I mean, well, so a home share STR is, I mean, maybe they really couldn't functionally be one anyway, but so a home share STR is the old typical Airbnb model where you rent out a room in your home and you're there. And it's not like a bed and breakfast because you're not cooking for them, but you're living there and people come and go. So that's the home share. The resident STR is a full STR, but a max of 60 days a year. So you can go to Europe in the summer and rent your house out as an STR. That's that model. Does anybody actually use those? No. I mean, I think there is one STR that I think functions like a home share STR, but they have the full license, but it mostly functions as the home share. And then there was another one that essentially functioned as the resident STR, but they kept their full license. So they're not super popular options, but.
Yeah.
so my other question along with this is, yes, the city council took a vote, but that has to be turned into an ordinance, right? That's not legally binding at this point.
That's correct. And it's not necessarily the same council anymore.
Right, so I don't understand what, I mean, yeah, this is good information, but this is not necessarily what we have to do.
Not at all, but last time we talked about it, you asked for this information.
Yeah.
So that's all.
So because even though the city council voted or gave their opinion on this,
You do not have to stick to it.
even though they're eventually going to approve the ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think you wanted this information because I think it's might sway your opinion on how you vote on things, and I think that's why you asked for it. But no, I think one, it's gonna be a different council, at least to some degree, and two, I think you could also provide justification as to why your recommendation is something different.
So the previous vote of the city councils.
Was not an
null and
ordinance.
void if they want to take it on again. They don't have to
Yeah,
say, well.
that's right, because it was kind of a straw vote. It was not actually an ordinance in front of them. It was just the planning commission wanted to know their opinion on it.
Okay,
And then that was their opinion.
so that's maybe what we say is they gave an opinion rather than a vote.
Okay, yeah.
The other one other clarification question was back on page 37. Down under the paragraph that's about size limits. And it says, based on my reading of the code. What code are you referring to?
Such the state code.
State. Housing.
Housing, yeah, it's like 6614, I think is what it starts with.
Okay, it just wasn't clear with that code. And Yeah, okay, then on page 3 of the staff report, and unfortunately, we just talked about CPPs, but I'm just bringing up over on the staff report. The bottom, the bottom paragraph says approval of an exclusion order is done separately from other portions of the LCP. They must be approved by a 2/3 vote of the commission. Is that planning commission?
That's coastal commission. So exclusion orders are approved by coastal
Okay.
commission.
My confusion throughout the whole document was that it's difficult sometimes to determine if you're referring to the planning commission or the coastal commission.
Did notice that. I think if I didn't say, then it's the same as whatever the previous. So like if you see in this paragraph, I've got planning commission and coastal commission. In this one, I said coastal commission and then approved by the commission, but that I didn't explain that, but that was my reason.
I see that. Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
okay. But that's kind of my question or clarifications on the staff. Then you want us to go through the ADU issues here?
Yeah.
On page 2 and talk about those.
We should give it a try. We can come with some consensus on some of them.
But yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure exactly where in the process we have other comments to make here, maybe.
On the staff report?
Yeah,
Sure, go ahead. But what, if you have any other comments that are not ADU or related to the ADU portion?
right. Okay, so basically, in the background, you mentioned that paragraph 1, 2, 3, starting off with currently. Sentence where we say there have been several instances where no other permit applies, but a CDP is still required, and we do not have a real process for that. So when does it seems like we need to have a real process.
We do.
So
It's so like one example, were the improvements at the Civic Club property, that are 2012 that are still under appeal, like the steps and the top of the trail. That's an example. So wasn't enough grading to require a grading permit or design review, didn't require a use permit, didn't require a building permit, but because it was 50 feet from the bluff, it required a coastal development. And so we did process a CDP for that, for some of the trail closures.
Yes.
That's a recent example. Those are just CDPs. And so we just process it in consistency with the LCP in general and consistency with coastal act.
So do you consider that a real process?
I mean, yes, we use the notification process that we have, and that sort of thing, but it's not exactly follows the current coastal commission regulations.
Okay.
So we do have a process. It's just not outlined well. And, we've talked about, I think the findings are important. Exclusions and exemptions, clearing those up. I think those are confusing right now because we don't have the exemptions in our ordinance. Any exceptions to the exemptions. And something like administrative permits, we've wanted to do something like that for a long time, so it brings all that.
So you're okay with kind of having this background, kind of leave something, a statement that makes it sound something up in the air.
Well, that's the whole purpose of writing the CDP
Yeah.
document.
Okay, so when the CDP document is,
I could say we don't have a formal process for that. Maybe that's the word. We have it is real.
okay, well, maybe formal is I would like to see that bit In other words, it seems like we just have opened up a can of worms and then we just move on, you know? Does our applicant here know that she doesn't have to stay?
Yeah, thanks.
If not, willing to leave. That's all I have to say.
Well, moving on to the ADU. Section, let's see if we can get some answers for forever. Start with that first one on JADUs. Types of permitting.
My feeling is yes. And the reason is that I think because we're so crammed in the city with properties close to each other, that I think that it would be important to make sure that the overall scale of is consistent with the local conditions or local environment, because not that, you know, someone would take advantage of it, but it would just seem to me someone could try to put JDU that's larger than whatever. And I know we do have criteria in to limit that, but it just seems to me that to me, it's not that big of a deal to just then, hey, let's go ahead and have a use permit. It just gives us one more chance to ensure that it's compliant.
It would, I will say, and I think that makes some sense, especially because the use permits are about neighborhood compatibility and that sort of thing. Just to clarify though, it will require the full CP. So we'll come to you for a hearing and design review if it's new.
So that's what was confusing me. And I almost feel like we need to have some sort of logic diagram here.
Yeah,
Because if.
which is why I want the answers to these questions so I can finish my diagram.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I'm sort of trying to figure out is
Flow chart.
this, and that's exactly, and I had them before, but we changed our permit process and the law changed too. So, yeah, what requires what permits under what situation?
So a use permit then would automatically trigger full CDP.
No, an ADU that's outside the box would trigger a full CDP.
Okay.
Now, do you, and design review if it's new construction?
Yes.
Now, do you want that to also include these
Outside the box.
outside the box? Or is the CDP and design review?
So if somebody was building, or excuse me, maybe building not the right word, developing, creating a JADU, theoretically, there's no change to the exterior of the structure.
The JADU?
JADU.
Yeah, I think
They're just gonna
it's like
carve something out.
150 square feet new entrance, like you can make a new entryway.
So
And then you can also convert an accessory structure, unlimited size, into an ADU.
I saw that one.
Yeah, that's, there's some big accessory structures around, so.
For sure.
Yeah.
Gear sheds. So I guess I want to respectfully disagree with Richard, because if all they're doing is creating a JADU, there is minimal changes to the exterior of the structure. If they want to do some additions and like turn it into a JADU, then that's going to require
Yeah, and I think this is less likely. This isn't really an issue for JADUs because I think JADUs are very limited. Their box is limited. And if you have something bigger than that box, you're now an eight. You're no longer a J.
Wait a minute, except you said if you're converting
But that's still, it's an eight. So, and JADUs are very specific because it has to be within the living area. So that's JADUs.
Oh, okay.
Don't include accessory structures.
Got it.
But they do have to have their own entrance, so there's an allowance for an entry. But yeah, so if someone is building a new construction ADU or so JADU is not going to be expansion, but you could add on to your house or you could build a new structure for an ADU. If it's within the box, we can't have a discretionary permit. But if it's outside that box, it's going to require a full CDP and design review if you're altering the structure. And you will have new, and just point.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't have any trouble with what you're saying. I mean, we're on the same page. I just, yeah. Because we will have.
Yes, and if it's outside the box, you're gonna have a.
Full
They call it a
CDP.
regular CD.
Yes,
Regular,
exactly.
with a public hearing.
Right.
And the ministerial CDP, you still have noticing. And I think maybe it still gets reported to you, but it's not appealable and it's not.
Right.
It's not like, it just gets reported and noticed, but you can't do it.
But they do automatically then get coastal development permit?
Yeah, it's like a
And
building.
it's automatically approved?
Yep, it's like a building permit if they check the boxes, yeah.
So is there an opportunity for the public to know what's going on?
Yeah, so it is noticed, but they can't
Okay.
object. I mean, they can object, but. The
They don't
permit
have
was still
to.
issued, yeah. It's. Like to try and think through all these scenarios is
Too many
like,
scenarios.
because staff so that's a staff determination on a ministerial permit. Is that appealable? Like a building permit, I mean. Can you? And that's a good, someone could argue that the ADU doesn't actually meet standards.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that someone could argue that, but they can't say, I don't want you to issue the permit because it's going to impact you if it does meet those. So it's a weird,
We'll probably have to litigate.
So is there going to be a building permit for any ADU that converts anything? I mean,
yes,
doorway.
yeah, building standards apply, but there are some limits on that too, like the fire sprinklers.
Right, but basic structural issues and.
Yeah, and so when you're doing new interior, new construction, it has to meet all current building codes. With a couple of exceptions, like the solar and sprinklers. The weird one though is if it's an existing ADU, you can't require it to meet code. Unless it's a public health and safety.
Well, that's the way it is with grandfathering in.
Yeah, but I mean, like not even building code.
Yeah, well, we punish.
Yeah, well, it's not, I mean, it was built illegally, not just non-conforming. That's what the state code says. You cannot go enforce illegal ADUs.
Well, yes, because you're opening a can of worms when somebody says it's illegal. Now all of a sudden, yeah, I think that's good, but.
So, I really appreciate the idea of having some sort of logic diagram, or flow diagram, but I think at the same time, it would be very useful to have examples of various scenarios so that we could, we could figure out what all to think about it. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and we have had those before, but the scenarios have changed, so that I could probably amend that, I have sort of a matrix.
Well,
So it sounds like we're leaning towards no use permit, just the full CDP design review is fine. Okay,
yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
for the second one, I think just for housekeeping, I think we probably should have something just. I don't wanna have another permit, but just, oh, you got your ADU permit, and it covers everything.
Which one are you talking
The
about?
second bullet that's sort of indented under
Oh,
there.
okay, related to permits?
Yes, the question is, should the city create a new ADU permit, right?
And then that would refer to ministerial ADU permits, full CDP ADU permits. I guess I just refer to both. My impression is it might be easier to just have one term that refers to all of them, but
I don't know.
I don't know. I think you could also have administrative ADU permits too. So have ministerial, administrative, and
It seems like adding a new thing without being specific.
I mean, the whole CDP ordinance or policy is going to be complicated as it is, right?
Oh, yeah.
yeah, okay, so ministerial ADU permit,
I don't want to introduce another
okay.
catch off of a person.
Okay.
I like the thought, but that's just my opinion.
I agree,
You guys
I
need
agree. Like, until we can not add something, it's good.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because it is possible that someone could reconvert from an ADU back to not being an ADU, right?
Well, that's one of the things where we've struggled with. And that was one of the reasons I had switched approaches to this limited ADU idea of a limited ADU area, because the HCD said, no, you can't have a deed restriction. So someone could just say, hey, I'm putting a second story on my house and making it an ADU. Oh, I changed my mind, but now I have a second story.
Yeah.
And HCD said we couldn't put a deed restriction on that. And so we want, but actually Coastal Commission has commented that they want to see that. So maybe they would argue that that's a coastal resource protection thing. So maybe we can add that back in, but yeah, no, I think that's a significant loophole.
So you can make that a clear issue when you're dealing with the coastal commission, that you want to see that, them have the authority there to say, hey,
We could
somebody
try.
built something essentially with one purpose in mind, skated by all the regulations that we would have ordinarily had. And now they just say, okay, we're just going to occupy it ourselves. Be sneaky, but well, people are going to figure that out.
I mean, I guess you can't force someone to rent their ADU though, so it could still have its kitchen in it and just use it as a, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to.
You don't know who's in
But
the,
I think that's why I think the limited view area is also key, because the ADU is smaller in the more view sensitive area of town.
Okay. So we're saying that city will not create a new ADU permit. Okay.
Okay. Sizes.
I was jump in and say 1,200 foot is too big. I mean, that's a 24 by 50 or a 40 by 30. That's a house.
But then the primary unit would have to be 2,400 square feet.
Right. But to that,
I kind of like just the street, the 850 and the 1,000.
yeah, I do too. It's like, why?
I mean, an HCD might come back and say, no, you have to allow any and all of that. I'm not sure.
Well, again, I think, again, going back to my other comment, I think that makes sense just to manage the overall scale of a community.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's there certainly are houses in town that are 1,000 square feet or less that build another house, an ADU that's potentially bigger than the current house. So like, it's probably fine if they get some.
But I think you could build a primary unit and make the. Okay, so consensus on the 850 and 1,000?
Good, that's fine with me, yeah.
Yeah.
How about ADU adaptability, ADA adaptability?
Sounds like we're required to do that.
So yeah, so the ordinance is currently written that says all first ground floor ADUs will be adaptable for ADA, which I think mostly means like widths of doorways and hallways.
But it's not defined. The term adaptable.
I think
it is in the building code.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the building code has the specific of,
what that
okay,
means.
all right, thank you.
So,
I think it should be no, but
well, that was my initial thought as well, but the code has it in there that they will, or is that what you're saying?
Our ordinance has it in there, but I don't see anything in the state code about ADA compliance, so. I don't know, some of this language goes back to. They're talking about ADUs. 422. I think we have an ordinance and we had an ordinance at the same time of our first VD ordinance, vacation dwelling units. Because the commission rejected it. But that language might be left from there, and I'm not sure. Maybe it was in the state code and isn't anymore. I don't know why it's in there.
well, if we don't say it and it's recorded later on, oh well.
Well, I guess there's another way of looking at it, that the whole purpose of ADUs is to increase housing. And if we are requiring the ADUs be modified or built to be adaptable, that puts a big print on someone who.
It potentially could.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I will clarify, this is new construction only.
Oh, well, that's.
So it's not,
Okay.
it's new construction ADUs. That's
Oh, okay,
clear.
so we need to say that.
Yes, you are correct.
Oh, if that's the case, then I agree.
I
It should be
do,
adaptable.
yeah. Yeah, if you're starting from scratch, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it has.
Okay. And the ADU STR discussion.
I think they should be prohibited. I think you got enough controversy with these short-term rentals as it is. I mean, you're not really adding new housing to the community by having a short-term vacation rental.
Well, I disagree.
Okay, good. Let's figure this
Because
out.
we have a cap on short-term vacation rentals across the city. So just because you build an ADU doesn't mean you can even rent it as an STR.
But if there are a bunch of STRs, ADUs that have been built, the city council can come back and change the cap.
If there's more housing.
They could do it tomorrow. They don't have to wait for new housing. I'm just saying, that's would be my concern. Is that another city council could say, hey, I want the cap to be 50. As opposed to 32 or whatever. So, just lost that new group of housing. Yeah.
I think one of the things we also talk about that kind of strikes with me though too is we're also talking about not just housing, but affordable housing and affordability. And someone having an ADU as an STR could allow them to buy a house. That's just one. Another.
I think
I
this,
like that perspective too.
I think this is one of those ones where I don't think that 3 should be considered unanimous.
Yes, but I think that's a good, yeah.
Well, I figured all of this would come back in some form. Nothing else in the minute next week.
Well, you know, if we all make our statement here and then Aaron or Chris comes up with a really good thought, you know, it's just a fact.
I would say because the complexity of the state regulations, it would probably be easier just to say no STRs and ADUs. Just because it's confusing to know because you can't have STRs in the state mandated ADUs, but you can allow them in the other box, and it's very difficult to understand how the two boxes function together.
So the easy way out would be to say they should be prohibited.
Yes. Not that that's what I'm advocating.
We're no one's going to quote you. I guess it is.
Actually, to me, it seems like ADUs actually, in some ways, make good STRs because if the primary, especially if the primary unit is owner occupied, because then you have someone on site who's managing it and does away with all the problems. So I mean.
Well, it's also, but that changes what's going on in the neighborhood too. You know, people coming in and going. Rather than somebody coming in there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you wanted to kind of split the hair, you could say that it would be permissible for a owner occupied STR. I mean, what's the term?
Owner, if the
owner's on
primary unit is
premises,
occupied, the ADU could be
an STR.
Yeah, you could say that, I guess.
Versus if the primary unit were rented as a long-term rental, you would not allow that.
That's an option.
But that's what you're saying.
Oh, no, I was saying that if the primary residence was owner occupied and he wanted a ADU to be an STR, that would be permitted.
But they couldn't rent the primary unit long term
Right.
and the.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're making that distinction. No, you can't do that because the whole idea was to have somebody on site to manage that property, and that would not
Who
happen.
is invested in? I mean,
Yeah.
they could still.
I know.
They could have the management company manage the
We
STR.
talked about agents and how that works out, and yeah. I mean, that's.
It's getting into a lot of weeds. Yeah.
I mean,
Let's say the easy way out is to say
Yeah, enough to say that this, and again, we go back to what is the whole purpose of doing this exercise? It's to increase housing.
Yeah.
And so.
I mean, you bring up a good point about the city council potentially raising the cap of. I mean, there's nothing stopping them
Mhm.
doing that. If we had a city council.
Well,
That would be right.
they're responsible for each side, so. We're just making
But-
suggestions when the city council wants to change it, they're gonna change it, right?
Right.
Likelihood of that, I think it'd have to be a lot more housing units for them to, but who, I mean, it could.
Well, if we got a council full of like
True.
different kinds of people than we currently have with
Real estate agents.
Yeah, exactly. Or some,
People want to increase the revenue that's flowing through.
then that could
Trinidad.
easily.
Yeah, I mean, especially if Trinidad starts having some financial difficulties.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it might be forced to make those kind of
But
decisions.
they could do that anyway.
But they
with or
can do that
without
anyway, and it would have the same
This,
effect.
this just is one more block, so to speak.
Yeah.
Again, I go back, what's the whole purpose of this exercise? We're housing. Yeah, stay on. I vote to say that they're prohibited.
Me too, so that's 2 out of 3.
I'm not on board.
They don't have to be. I mean, we're going to have this discussion again.
Yeah, I think it's good that this goes down on the record as a change free. If they're with the 2 missing members can go, well, what the hell, That's not a good, that's only 2 out of 5.
And how about the primary residence can be in this? Does the,
I mean.
If the ADU is on premises, you're asking if the primary residence can be an SDR. Where is that?
yeah, that was one of the questions. And I think that is up to you. The state law, I don't think says anything about that.
I mean, to me, it's like these two, the way the council opined on it are sort of contradictory. Well, to say that the ADU can't be an STR, but the primary residence can be an STR. I mean, they're both housing units. And by building this ADU, you're generating another housing unit just to rent out the other one as an STR. I mean, well, why can't you have it the other way, I guess. That makes sense.
Did I get that right?
Other commissioners. I think you did get that right, because I feel like I've heard that.
I mean, I think the idea is then you have the smaller unit, the more affordable unit is still housing.
That's what I interpreted it to be.
It's like an affordability
Yeah.
angle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, well, no, no.
Yeah, maybe there's some people that, work by the hour around Trinidad could actually live here. Have affordable units.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, do we have an answer?
Regarding the primary,
Or do we just want to leave it as,
I say yes.
yes.
I don't have a problem with it.
And then you don't even need anything in the ordinance, ADU ordinance, because the ADU ordinance is just for you.
Oh,
Then
right.
it's just regulated by the CR ordinance.
Yeah. Okay. You guys want to just I don't want to, we're not going through this document page by page, I don't think, but if there's some larger thoughts on it, or maybe some responses to some others. Questions in the margin. Hit those.
But then again, also you're like, do you have questions, big picture issues, that you want me to take back to the coastal commission too? That sort of thing. You can see some of my questions are directed to coastal commission, and some of my
Yeah.
questions are
We could get into it, and we don't have to finish it.
Is. So on the list of exemptions and exclusions.
What are you doing?
Well, I guess I'm on pages. Second page 43 through 45. This is more general.
Oh,
Um,
you're into the packet.
we're into the document. Is that all right?
What about our lead in here?
Yeah, I think we rolling
did I
with some
skip-
questions on the staff report, I think.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm getting ahead of Roland.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Go for it, Roland.
Well, you have some things like where you talk about CDP exemptions on that, page 3 of the staff report. This, what you said here, this makes sense, but it did seem like we should discuss that.
What's that, the exemptions?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not that familiar with what all the exemptions are, but it does seem like when you see it's not currently have most of these exemptions in its LCP. A few are included, projects that are exempted from needing a C or generally exempt from needing other discretionary permits. So. I'm not sure how the other permits, reflect what I consider a coastal development permit, sort of a unique thing.
I think that's a good thing to think about. So essentially, the exemptions that start in the ordinance on packet page 43, except where I highlighted, there's some highlighted language in there that's not directly from the Coastal Act regulations. But essentially, those exemptions are straight from the regulations. And my understanding from Coastal Commission staff has been that we can't be less strict, but we can be more strict. However, I think I copied these out of Santa Cruz County, and they had some things that varied from Coastal Act regulations. So those were some of my questions for Coastal Commission staff, is can we do that? But there are going to be things that are like this deck tonight, that's an improvement to a single family residence, and it wouldn't require, and even an addition. They could have put an addition on it, make the roof taller. That would then be exempt from a CDP, but the city might still want to require a design review for some of those projects. So that is something to keep in.
Well, is that a good example? I mean, would the coastal commission typically have a problem with raising the heights of buildings?
No, well, if you're outside the appealable area, no. If you're, there are some limits. If you're between the sea and the first public road, or within 300 feet of a bluff, or so that's basically the appealable area. If you're in the appealable area, which is, like I said, between the sea and the first public road, and Underwood doesn't count because Underwood doesn't go through.
So that's not considered a public road.
It is, but it dead ends, so it doesn't keep going, so that's not the first. Like Wagner is not the first public road, so the appealable area comes all the way back to like Main Street. And Trinity. Because those are the only through roads. But so the appealable area in Trinidad is a significant portion of the city. Within the appealable area, you cannot raise the height or square footage more than 10%. So that's the limit. If you're outside the appealable area, any improvements are really exempt.
Okay.
We could make those more strict. If we
You could make those more strict, and that's one of my comments, yeah.
That was one of your comments when you said the draft CDP chapter, that the comment where you basically, I would think that would be allowable as it is stricter.
Yeah, like the size, yeah, limiting the size on the first one, yeah. But then I think the next one might be, the water used, guess it. There's one that allows septic system improvement. Sweet, can we do that? Coastal Commission staff have indicated to me that that would require a change in our exclusion order as opposed to exemptions, but.
But we certainly know that you shouldn't have to be dealing with coastal commission. Fix septic system that's not working correctly.
Well, especially because we don't have any kind of administrative permit or waiver process that we can streamline that. So that's been my whole, I'm like, I'm not gonna require someone to come to a public hearing to figure something. That's been, we butted heads in a little bit.
So you decided that on your own?
Based on some things.
Okay.
That's good.
I mean, the coastal commission never said anything actually until a few years ago, so they didn't, and the county had to start doing it, and so it hasn't been something that they've required all along. And I don't think the coastal act language, it says expansion of septic systems. Right. And so, and it might even be a local statute.
Well, we know that if they start messing around with things that seem to be repairs, I mean, there's all kinds of things that if they go wrong, they need repaired. You shouldn't have to get a permit to repair pretty much anything, I would think, any structure. They've been repair and improve.
I guess that's the, you know, I think they argue, well, yeah, so if your repair includes replacing an 800-gallon tank with a 1,200-gallon tank, that's an expansion.
Which makes sense.
Does it?
But it's just to meet current code,
Right.
Yeah.
so you're not expanding the capacity of the system, and that's where I think the difference really should.
Yeah, expanding the leach field is way different than making a bigger septic tank. I mean, you just don't have to pump it as often, basically. And you get better processing in a bigger tank.
And if your 800-gallon tank is cracked, I don't think you can even get an 800-gallon tank.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's, I will be talking to coastal commission staff more about that topic. It's definitely been a topic of discussion, especially with ADUs. Because that's gonna affect septic systems. But yeah, any more general questions about exemptions or exclusions?
Well, not sure, maybe it's already been kind of covered, but where you have the draft, it's on page 4 of the draft CDP chapter. The language is not included in this. the coastal act regulations. Then you're talking about using your Santa Cruz County example. I guess you're really using that because it's kind of complete, right? I mean, it's further along than most people's. I mean, because I don't know how Santa Cruz relates to Trinidad, but.
I've actually used quite a bit of stuff from Santa Cruz County and Santa Cruz. I mean, even though they're much more developed, there are some similarities in problems and attitudes and things like that. So I have used, because I'm from there, I don't know, but I have used like some of their septic stuff. They were one of the first, Santa Cruz County had a septic management program. So that was sort of where that started. But some of their coastal stuff is good.
Okay,
too.
well, you just say, I would think that you're talking about the limits, I would think that would be allowable as it is stricter than the coastal act regulations. Anytime I see something stricter than regulations, it's like, we should be questioning being stricter. I mean, you got enough.
That's so, and maybe, one thing is, in one sense, it's kind of nice to have coastal development permits and design review all essentially aligned and the same process and the same projects require both. Where if we use all these exemptions, but then you still want to limit design review, then you're going to have two kind of separate. So you have to look, okay, do you meet the CDP? Okay, no, but then do you meet the design review? So it makes the process a little bit more complicated, but that is the normal process in most jurisdictions, so that's fine. But you could, again, limiting the size of the improvements that are exempted, maybe keep them more in line with the design review, what you want for design review.
Well, and you also state that it's likely not to be allowed without an amendment to the Trinidad exclusion order. So we would have to do that as part of this as well.
If you want to be less strict, like yeah. Well, so.
No, I read that to be the other way around. However, language that goes beyond the exemptions in the Coastal Act regulations likely will not be allowed without an amendment to the Trinidad exclusion order. Am I reading it?
Yeah, well, so if we want to exempt things that Coastal Commission staff says are not exempt under the Coastal Act, then we would need that in ours. So we want to say, for example,
Right.
certain upgrades of septic systems. Or another one I've seen, lot line adjustments. So even lot mergers, as we've seen, the Coastal Commission says that's change in the intensity of use. But what if it's just a boundary correction to make it on the fence line and you're not, it seems like that kind of thing we could have an exemption for, but that would have to be an exclusion.
Exclusion rather than an exemption.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then there are exceptions, the exemptions.
I know, I remember.
Oh God, what are we doing? Is it any wonder where somebody wants to do something, it's just so tangled up? Like, gosh. That's why I made the comment about being stricter. It's like, stricter means more oversight, more messing around in the details of things, who are we protecting here?
No, I think it'd be more about, I think it'd be more about aligning the procedures, but I mean, it would make sense to keep CDPs separate because, then you're dealing with potential appeals to Coastal Commission, that sort of thing for some.
Most of it's consistent, so people, are going into a process where they want to do something, improvements or something new, I'm not talking about some really bad idea, but if they have a process to go through, they say, we're looking at doing something, and they go to you, for example, and say, what's my process? If you can give them kind of an outline of things that make sense and say, well, as you get into this, there might be some exceptions and exclusions But if you follow this path, you're 90% on your way. You shouldn't expect, unnecessary surprises.
And it could be like, okay, well, you're adding on to your house and it's, over in that part of town. So, okay, you don't need the CDP, but you still need design.
Well, and you would tell them that right up front. Where are you in your project? Yeah. Okay, well, that's why I think we need to talk about these things.
Because currently, the design review requirements say if it's exempt from a CDP, you don't need design. But if we're adding these, kind of fairly significant exemptions.
Okay, well, something I guess which is similar to that is kind of the rest of that subject, where it's put up on the next page. You've spoken of the coastal commission then. And you say, however, because the standard of review and approval, so my preference would be to do that at a later date. Is there other ways to streamline approvals? I'm not sure I understand why doing it at a later date is helpful. Because, okay, so here's the question I thought of. So what would happen if a on-site wastewater system improvement project comes up in this, before this amendment is completed?
Well, so I think what I'm saying is, okay, well, we're going to have this new CDP chapter and it's going to have administrative permits and or maybe waivers. And we could process septic improvements through that streamlined process. As opposed to a new exclusion order where we would have to, according to Coastal Commission staff, we'd have to provide, almost like an EIR on improving every septic system in Trinidad and show it's not going to have impact to get the exclusion order. So it's kind of a high bar because for them to blanket say, okay, no permits for septic repairs, you would have to show that septic repairs are never going to happen.
So you don't see this, delaying this to have any real impact to anybody who is in the process.
I do, but I think in my conversations with Coastal Commission staff, they seem to be setting the bar so high that you're putting all the front work on the city instead of, so I think the administrative permits and waivers are maybe a compromise where we're not doing all that upfront analysis and work, but the applicants have to jump through less hoops, but still some hoops.
Okay.
And with ADUs in particular, and these answers can vary depending on what staff person you talk to, but their current statewide housing person seems to think that ADUs include improvements related to the ADU, which would include septic improvements. So I think he's arguing that if it's ADU related, it falls under that same ministerial permit as the ADU itself. The driveway, the septic, everything associated with it, utilities. Which is a new, previously they said, no, your septic is not part of that and you'd have to get the full permit for it. So.
Well, if you're pushing to have ADUs, then of course you would.
That's the thing,
infrastructure that goes
the
with it.
state is pushing the coast, the state has come down a little bit on the coastal commission. And I think they have been being criticized as being a roadblock to housing.
It's shocking. Okay, so at the very end here, you say note there are also provisions from ministerial CDPs, including the ADU. And I argue with that comment, it's just, are we gonna be doing anything that's gonna create a conflict with HCD? I mean,
No, I mean, I don't know, because.
we don't wanna do that.
No, our ADU ordinance requires approval by HCD and.
Okay. So satisfy the HCD first and then the coastal commission second.
It's a negotiation, I think, between the two agencies in some way.
So hopefully we're not the only community that's stuck in the middle.
We are not, but the law is continually changing. And so some of these recent changes, like one big one of the real big ones for coastal commission is that no appeals for ADUs to the coastal commission. So that really changes where before they were, we were going to do this administrative permit, but administrative permits only apply in the non-appealable area. Well, now all ADUs are not. So if septic are included in that, it's kind of, it makes the permitting, and I'm still not 100% clear on exactly what that pathway looks like. But to me, it makes things, especially because so much of Trinidad is appealable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna suggest we don't.
Clear as mud.
I'm gonna suggest we don't get into chapter 17.74 tonight.
I think that's fine with me. I mean, I don't want to get into the details of it, but
Yeah.
if there was some organizational or larger.
Yeah, I get that. It's like, I don't know, once you open that up. But I mean, we ended up with some significantly discussions about some of these things have been my experience, which I think have always been helpful, good.
I'll make one comment, and it's right in the beginning because, like I say, I don't necessarily want to go through this whole thing either. But we talk about, actually, it's on the first page of it, on page 43. At the bottom of the page, paragraph 1. We talk about in a significant public viewshed or highly scenic area, those areas designated in the certified LUP or determined during project reviews. That to me has always been a very vague issue. And I don't know if we need to crisp that up or come up with definitions or locations or identify certain areas of the city. But to me, that's just, well, it's open to so much interpretation.
Well, yeah, so, and that is, and as I mentioned, so Santa Cruz must have scenic areas designated in their LCP. Trinidad does not. But yeah, or determined during project review. So that would be a question. I mean, that question has come up in my mind of, like, for example, administrative permits. So what kinds of projects do we apply administrative permits to? And then I have to make the decision that, oh, they're not going to impact views. What are the standards for that? How do you do that until you actually put up story poles and notify the neighbors? But I think that permit now, Not true with exemptions, but at least for administrative permits, you would still you would still notify the neighbors and report it to the planning commission. So someone could say, no, it does affect my views, they need a full.
Well, yeah, but this would suggest that somehow or another, there are areas that would be designated as highly significant or public view sheds.
We do have a view overlay zone with the views of vegetation. So we do have that, an area like that map.
Because I forgot that we had that in there. Yeah, okay.
And we've talked about expanding that to other areas of requiring design review inside that area and not outside that area. So that might be a way to apply that.
Okay, so there may be some additional referencing that we can put in here that would, okay.
If you want to keep some.
Yeah, that's sure. Yeah. Actually, I didn't think it was such a bad cut first cut.
Like I said, a lot of it is just pretty standard language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's stuff that's been
It's been
elsewhere.
vetted and elsewhere. Most CDP chapters include very similar things. I was kind of flipping through and I didn't even, besides that limiting the size of improvements that are exempt, I didn't see anything for the planning commission until we get to noticing. So there's different noticing requirements in appealable areas and non-appealable areas. And do you want to have those different or just have one set notice for all projects? The findings, I think the findings are a big one the planning commission should think about. There is some flexibility. There's sort of a couple of minimum findings, but other than that, you can have additional findings. So that would be a big place, I think.
With the way the exemptions and inclusions are written in here, they're written as like double negatives. Like, here's the things that are exempt, except for these things are exempt. And I don't know if there's a better way to write it, but it'd be nice if there was a better way to write it, where it was just like, these things are exempt. And if maybe you have to flip a bunch of language around.
Yeah.
And maybe that becomes really cumbersome.
Improvements to single family residences are exempt. Unless you're near a bluff or unless you're, it would be hard to.
Maybe it's hard,
I think it would be hard. I could
it's
look
harder
for
to write it the other way, which, yeah.
You could say unless it's then. Yeah. I can look for some other examples. But that's essentially how the regulations are written, so
That's how they are in our current regulations.
Yeah, so the Coastal Act itself is where these exemptions are. It says, it lists some things that will not require a permit, and then it says, except that the executive director will determine when things do need a permit. And so then that's in the regulations is the exceptions to the exemptions.
Okay, I guess in that, maybe it's better to just mirror or emulate their layout,
But I can see if there's some other examples of how they're written.
Well, if we have any opportunities to do what you're saying, that should be done. If you read it and it comes across as confusing,
Yeah,
or
it
you're
does.
lost in it, then they're not doing our job.
it certainly does.
I know we can't avoid all of those, but it's gosh,
I was just found that you're reading, you get so far down the list of exceptions to the exemption, and then you're like, well, shit, is this an
Going down
exemption?
the
gotta go back at the
And you
start.
flip back and you go, okay, and it's that one.
I know.
There are other ways, Some ordinances I have seen where each exemption is its own section, so we could. If that makes it more clear, I'm not sure it does, but.
What's an
Maybe
example?
I've seen some formatting differences.
That sounds like it might be. It might add pages.
It's gonna add, it would add pages.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, remember, our job here is to come up with documents that the general public can also figure out. I mean, as best we can.
I'm not sure that's.
I understand that, but you know, I feel like we should go as far as we can with that until, you know, you throw your hands up and say, that's gonna add 20 more pages to the document. You know, it adds a paragraph.
Anyway, just
Appreciate you.
something to think about.
Yeah. I mean, you could maybe. Like I see the replacement of destroyed structures, okay, that is an exemption if it meets these things, so maybe it could be written more. If it meets the bluff setback, if it meets the Isha setback, so instead of saying unless it's within an Isha, you can say if it meets the Isha setback, or something like that, instead of a double negative, so that might be one way to do it.
Have we covered our general comments here with this? How are we gonna start getting?
Yeah. For me. Without
I-
deep.
Yeah, I did not get far into this. Because okay, we should only do so much with the three of us, and I think we've covered a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, the only other general comment I'd make is that the appendix B is, the map is. That'd be useful to have.
Sorry, it's from 1975, so
Oh.
how useful it is.
Well, okay.
Which is why I mentioned maybe we could amend this.
Okay. Well,
Some of our maps are like,
I understand that. I just, you know, as I was reading through it and I said, oh, where's the map?
yeah, no, it's good. It's essentially just the shoreline
Okay,
parcels. It's
okay.
The first parcel.
I won't get into the details.
But yeah, some maps I think would be helpful, maybe the views and vegetation zone.
Well, our map's gonna be part of the ordinance.
But this one, yes, well. Certainly part of the LCP, not necessarily the subordinates. So the appealable area, we have a map for, it's also in the regulations in writing, like 300 feet from a bluff, that sort of thing. And it's the written part that takes precedence, the zoning ordinance, the zoning map is part of the zoning ordinance. Exclusion area. So potentially we could update maps as part of this.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the big one. Drawing a line on a map that's the bluff edge. Now we have one.
We have one, and that's what we based our appealable map on, but it does have a disclaimer, you know, bluff edges move, so this is
Well,
just for.
I don't think it isn't that it's just moved. There's also different kinds of data that are available now to look at that would help clarify it better. If you look at that map, there's some huge judgment calls on it. Where is the edge? You know, but the edge is like this, we all can recognize, right? Here's the cliff and here's the flat, you know, but a lot of it isn't like that. And And that map is,
You've seen the map, the 2017, 2018 maps?
yes. Yeah,
Yes, I.
well, of course, I'm just saying is that as critical as that is to the LCP, it does seem like somebody should review.
I think, yeah, I mean, you could get a different professional out there and map the blood.
Well, if you-
Yeah.
If you write technical reports for different developments and you send them to the county and they're more than 2 years old, they say, oh no, you need to go back and make sure it's still valid.
Yeah.
Now, that's just, I think it's an outrageous policy, but that is a policy. And
Just
it's-
like new plants, sensitive plants and animals,
Yeah,
either, or new things got listed, or yeah.
yeah.
I thought it was 5 years, but yeah.
Some things it's 5, and some things 2, but we're already past 5. With our map. So I know it takes resources to do that, but it might not take that much.
I think it could be adjusted some, yeah.
Yeah. And you just gave me the opportunity to bring that up, so. It's a sore point. We use 50 feet from it, we use 100 feet from it, different things.
Yeah.
We use all these different numbers, based on a line that's on a map at a fairly large scale.
Okay. Well, should we leave it at that for the evening?
I would like to leave it at that because I have to leave at 8:30 at the latest anyway.
Good deal. And, all right. I don't think there's any public comment on that one.
Carrie just left.
Everyone's been. They've decided to leave. So we'll move on to our next agenda item, commissioner reports, if there are any.
On me.
Okay, then staff report.
I have been focusing a lot on the LCP update. Met again with the folks working on the Murphy's lot development that's coming along. And the Cavers project also, I expect to get have all the background reports. I expect to get the architectural drawings probably this week, so.
Say Cavers.
Cavers, which is the vacant lot at the end of Edwards,
Okay.
above the parking lot. There's a vacant lot at the end of Edwards, just above the thing.
Wow. Squeeze something in there.
Yeah, it's not a tiny lot, actually, although it does go down onto the beach, but yeah.
Well, once you go look for it, you'll see it.
Yeah. And there's a house like right behind it.
Yeah.
Agree with it. Remember a long time ago, somebody was talking about buying that. I could buy it from you, they would sell it.
It's the same, the owner that owns the house right behind it is the same.
That's the first one. Of course.
That's the last one.
Yeah. Are either of those, sound like they're not gonna be in front of us anytime soon?
No, I would expect Cavers, I told him he needs it basically I need everything by the end of the month for the September.
Okay.
We're already past.
Can I request that? Maybe especially for whatever is going on over here behind Murphy's, which I really don't know much about. When it does eventually, if it ever makes it to us, can we get like a longer lead time of the packet, more than 5 days for a project that might be relatively large.
Yeah. That's a good, and it might come in. Yeah, we should think about if,
Head up too.
it might even come. Cause they wanna do a there's gonna be a lot of components, so it's probably gonna be multiple meetings anyway,
Okay.
but yeah.
That's. Yeah, well, to your point. I guess I wouldn't wanna go to the meeting thinking that we were gonna replace the entire.
Oh,
and then,
yeah, right, yeah.
Like, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that was a battle with our listing development up here on, West Haven Drive, but.
Great, future agenda items, I think we wanted to add a note maybe about story polls to the. Design guidelines, maybe, or.
Yeah.
Well, if we've done something, it would be nice just
Just-
to maybe
yeah.
resurrect it to see where we're at.
Refresh,
Yeah.
refresh on.
Yeah, put it on future agenda. It's a good idea.
Well, it would be good. And we have these big projects coming up.
It would be
so
nice to have that
Yeah,
beforehand.
yeah,
Right?
okay, I can put that on July,
Okay.
Because I think, we've talked about how you can adopt them as kind of policy. They wouldn't be your official findings, but they are guidelines to help you make the findings that are in the ordinance.
Sure. And I think it'd be useful for the public too, to understand what.
And I gave them to the applicants. I gave the applicants those guidelines, actually.
Yes, but the comment or the response was, I don't know. So that was the reason I brought it up again. Because I don't think it's necessarily just a negative. Or yes,
So for the story polls on this one, yes, on this one.
Yeah.
I meant the Cavers and the Murphys. I sent.
Oh, I see.
I sent them our new draft design.
Okay, I very much. All right.
Well, that when Carriers, they sure as heck are gonna need something like story.
Yeah.
With a big view shed issue.
And I have mentioned that. Well, he says they've talked to all the neighbors and it's.
And really, neighbor was just part of the public.
Well, that's good that they've talked to their neighbors.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Yeah, how far they've gone, I don't know, but it's also, it's gonna be sitting above the parking lot, so it's bulk, I think is I think it's relatively.
Anything else? Future agenda items? Okay. We'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Yep.